Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 14th episode of the True Talks podcast. As per usual, the gameplay you see on the screen is my own gameplay that I recorded myself. And to note, it also has nothing to do with what I'm going to be talking about today, so you do not have to watch the footage to understand what's going on. This is something you can play in the background if you would like, or fall asleep to, whatever. I'm also keeping these at around a moderate PG-13 rating. That's just what I'm sticking to. Also, if I randomly burst out in coughing fits or sound a little bit weird today, I'm getting over a cold, so like that. So I apologize. It's actually been a bit since I recorded. It's been over 2 weeks because a lot of actual real life stuff happened. But I'll be talking about that in the current event segment. Today's topics. Today is Halloween, so to fit the theme, even though this will not come out on Halloween, I didn't really think that through when I came up with this, but I'm going to talk about my opinions on the horror genre of movies and video games, kind of just generally speaking, and what my experience is with it, even though it's pretty low. I'm going to rank the Zelda games. I don't remember saying that I was going to do that, so I'm going to be doing that on the fly, I guess. The special segment is going to be kind of a current event type thing and the reason it's special is because I'm going to talk about what I think of Loki Season 2 so far, because at this point, Episode 4 has aired, and we're in between Episode 4 and 5. 5 has not come out yet. And then, at the end, I will have a massive board game review dump, where I am going to review 5 or 6 board games, because I recently went on a vacation that I'll talk about, and I got to hang out with my family, and we played a good amount of board games that I ordered in a massive sale that they had at Target. So first, current event stuff. It's been a while since I recorded, which means it's a good thing that I recorded a lot in advance. I have a good amount of buffer to be able to have a couple weeks off here and there in the beginning. The issue, though, is that I will never gain any back, because I'm always going to upload once a week, and I will only lose time. I can't gain it unless I take a week off of uploading, which I don't see myself doing. So, I'm never going to record 2 episodes in 1 week. That just wouldn't be feasible. For one, well, really the main issue with that would be there wouldn't be enough to talk about. I barely can get enough to talk about for a 1 week, a once a week recording session, let alone 3 days. But we had our usual fall MEA break that we have in Minnesota, and that was a couple weeks ago now. I went on a fishing trip with my family, which was super nice. It was very refreshing, and honestly, it made me realize how much I miss just being around people. I probably go on and on about the woes of my semi-loneliness a little too much on the show, but it really does get to me sometimes, and it especially gets to me after I've been with people for a bit. When I went, the last time I recorded an episode, I had just done the alumni pep band thing, and it was the same way when I got back home from that. It's suddenly it hits me like a truck just how alone I am up here, because I could try to go out and meet people, but there's not very many people that are my age in this community. They're either the kids that I teach, which obviously I'm not going to be friends with the kids that I teach, or they're people that are at least 10 years older than me. There's no one really in the 20s that I know up here, which makes it kind of a little bit lonely. And granted, it was when I went on my trip with my family, it's my family is not I can make friends with people who are vastly different age than me. It's just the people up here, it's hard for me to find any adults that share the same passions as me. Like, I would be classified as a nerd. Like, I would consider myself a jockey nerd. Like, I very much am a stay inside, play video games, play board games, listen to music, play music sort of guy. Watch TV, watch movies. Like, that's inherently my personality, but I also don't mind going out every once in a while, and, like, like, going on hikes, I really actually like doing that. I just don't know where to walk in this area, which is another problem. Like, I don't know the neighborhood well enough to know where to, like, walk, like, where walking trails are or anything. And then I also like football and basketball to a degree. Basketball, I only really watch a game here or there, but I am into sports very much so. It's just not at the forefront of my personality. I'm very much more of a nerd, but I still have, like, what I would call jock tendencies. Like, yeah, I was a varsity cross-country runner. That's the jock I got in me. I ran track, and I was pretty fast. But yeah, so the trip was super fun in of itself. I got to spend it was 2 full days and 1 half day with my family, and it was super nice. I basically spent 3 full days because Thursday I got there at like 1 or 2 p.m. And it was nice because we went to the same resort we've always gone to since I was like 4 or 5 years old. So it's really nostalgic for me to go there because it's like the buildings they do a really good job of renovating their buildings. Like, it's not like outdated or anything, but it's still the same like layout and everything. So they still have the same playground. So same basketball court. So it's like I still am able to put myself back in my childhood basically for the time being when I'm there. And I really do enjoy fishing as well. I'm not the type of person who, if I was given the opportunity to, I could not fish like every week out of the year. I am perfectly fine with the 1 trip like in the fall, 1 trip in the summer sort of deal. Like, well, we get 2 trips in the summer basically because we get Memorial Day weekend and then a full week in like June. But yeah, it's really enjoyable for me, but it's not something that I would do like all the time. Like, it's nice to get out, but I don't know. Like, being bored is not something I do well with. And I will say I am a person who does have the mindset that it is okay to be bored once in a while. The issue a lot of people have is as soon as they're bored, they take out their phones or something to try to occupy themselves with something. And I think that's one of the big problems of society today. Like, not to be all like, oh, we live in a society or anything like that, but like, it's really becoming a problem because it's basically training people that they always need to occupy their minds with something. And I think that's why we have so many, like, I've noticed lately, like, people that I meet and, like, younger kids have a harder time falling asleep at night than, like, I did when I was a kid. Like, I had issues sometimes, but it wasn't as prevalent, I don't feel like, as it is now. And I think it's because we're so used to having to have our brains active at all times of the day and feeling like the pressure to, oh, I'm bored. I physically cannot sit for more than like I think people like today could not sit for more than 60 seconds without having anything to do. Like, sit and stare at a wall for 60 seconds or even just like think to yourself, zone out. And it's a struggle to not like have the itch to like take something out, like doodle on a piece of paper or go on your phone, go on YouTube. Like I'm guilty of this too. Like as soon as I get home, I'm pretty much on YouTube the entire night, really. Either that or I'm playing games on my Switch. But I'm like really straying from the topic today. I don't know. Maybe today's just a rambling episode. This is kind of the bright side of me spacing out the episodes lately, like recording them. I'm not going to be able to do this very much anymore because it's starting to, like, I'm starting to catch up to myself in the uploading. But shoot, I lost my train of thought. Dang it, I hate when this happens. But it seems like my thoughts kind of just run more freely when I don't feel the pressure to record once a week. But back to the topic at hand, the trip was super fun. As I said earlier, I played a lot of board games that I'd really been itching to play. That's another thing that really kind of sucks about not knowing anyone here. Like, normally when you're friends with someone, you can force them, like, you can coerce them into doing things that you like a little bit easier. Like, when I'm friends with someone, like, back in college, or, like, my girlfriend, for example, I was able to get her to play, like, Donkey Kong Country and Xenoblade because we were close already and hanging out already, so it's like, alright, here's something we can do. Whereas, I'm not gonna meet someone new and on the, like, first meeting be like, alright, plop a board game on the table and let's get to it. That's what I was starting to get at with my conversation earlier, is here a lot of people are not necessarily like the jockey type, but very much the outdoor sportsman type people, like going boating, hunting, fishing, which is basically the polar opposite of what I like to do. Like, I like to go outside and be outside occasionally and go on hikes and stuff, but my ideal hangout is not going out fishing with someone. My ideal hangout is pulling out a board game or pulling out a video game, and I don't know that there's anyone here who would actually play my board games with me, unless I, like, told one of the students, like, alright, after school today, let's play a board game. When I was student teaching, I used to play board games with some of the kids after school occasionally, and it was a lot of fun. I think that was just because they liked me quite a bit there, and they wanted to spend more time with me, which was okay. Like, I didn't mind it. I was student teaching. I didn't care how close I got to the students. Whereas, like, here, I really don't want that line to get blurred as well between teacher and friend. It's a really fine line you have to walk. However, I wouldn't mind playing a game or two of my favorite board games with some of my students. It would be kind of fun. But the issue is, there's, like, it would have to be, like, 2 or 3 of them. It couldn't be any more or less than that, because one-on-one is a little awkward, and any more than that, and you have people who have to observe, like, there's no games that can really suit more than, like, 5 or 6 people. And I don't want to have to teach rules to, like, I do enough teaching during the day. I don't want to teach a complicated board game to, like, 10 high schoolers at the same time. The fishing on the trip this year was really successful. Normally it's really slow for us in the fall. Like, we fish for pike, and normally it's slow, but they're bigger. This year, it was faster. Like, the first day we were out for like 4 or 5, well, no, it wasn't even 4 or 5, it was like 2 hours. We were out for like 2 or 3 hours, and between my dad and I, we caught 12. I think it was 12. They were all, like, there was maybe like 2 or 3 that we would have kept if they had already turned the fish house off, but, like, turned the power off and everything there. Um, so we couldn't keep any even if we wanted to, but there was about probably like 2 or 3 in there that we would have actually kept had we been keeping them, so they were all very small. But I did catch a like 9.5 pounder, which is the biggest one I've ever caught. Like, I caught, I think it was an 8 pounder in the summer, and now I just caught a 9 pounder, which hasn't topped my dad's best. My dad caught a 10 pounder, 10 pound northern pike, a couple falls, well, it's been a few falls ago now. Like, it was back when I was in high school, I think, that he caught that. But maybe not. Maybe I was still in early college. I can't remember. It's been a while. But I caught a 9 pounder here, and it's the biggest fish we've ever caught on this lake. Like, we've kind of gone back and forth between 2 different resorts, and the cabin that we used to stay at, well, it's kind of a long, convoluted story. We've always gone to the same resort since I was like 4 years old, but then we started going to a like single cabin like property, like one that's just a single cabin that this guy owns, and that cabin is on the lake that my dad grew up fishing on. So there's a history with that one, and that one has like it has crazy good fishing. Like, we pretty much would catch at least a couple like 2-3 pound pike every year, and then my dad caught the 10 pounder on that lake. I can't remember. I think that was the lake that I caught the 8 on as well. Yeah, it was. I caught the 8 pounder on that lake last summer because it's close enough to the resort that we stay at now that we can pull the boat out of that lake and drive it over. But the resort that we have now gone back to, because the one-off cabin on the lake that my dad used to stay at, that one has closed now. So we are now going, again, it's a long, convoluted story, and it's like, it's hard to explain. But we go to the resort now that we used to when I was a kid. So we had never caught any pike that even close to that big on that lake. So, and it was really surprising too, because I barely had any line outs, and we were in really shallow water. Like, we were starting to run too shallow, and then all of a sudden that one hit, and yeah, it's weird because you would think the bigger fish would be in the deeper water, but it was not. But yeah, it was super fun to reel in as well, because it like jumped up out of the water, and it was just really cool to see. And that's why I do enjoy fishing, because once in a while you get a battle like that. But yeah, overall the trip was really fun, really relaxing. It was nice to be able to... I brought my laptop there because I was going to grade some stuff while I was there, and then I ended up I didn't even take it out once, because I truly... Like, I believe this even when I'm, like, just during a regular week. Like, I don't do stuff at home for my job. Like, any other job... You never, like, working the, like, 9 to 5 at Walmart, you aren't gonna come home and start thinking of, like, start preparing for the next day, like, doing physical work at home to prepare for the next day. Like, you don't do that in any other job. But teaching, I feel like there's kind of a weird expectation there where people expect teachers to always be on call, like in the evening or after, like not like right after school. Obviously right after school I'm still available, but like I pretty much set the boundary for myself that after 5, I am not looking at my email again. I am not going to do anything school related after 5 p.m. And even before school, I wake up at 5:30 and I sit in my recliner drinking coffee, watching memes for like an hour and a half before I have to get up, shower, and get over there. Because I have plenty, like, I know I have plenty of time during the day to do what I need to do. So I shouldn't have to worry about it when I'm at home. Sometimes when I, when I remember I have to enter a grade quick, I'll do it at home because that's not something that takes very long. But generally speaking, I leave my work at work, and I refuse to do anything at home if I can help it. I do have email notifications on my phone, so like if something urgent came up, I would see it. But otherwise, I leave it be, which really does help me relax, because I think if I can't, like, the first couple weeks was just hell. Like, I will say that right now. It was, like, I was hating it. And it was partially because I was doing so much, I was pretty much working until 6 or 7 o'clock sometimes, because I was staying after school that late to finish things that I thought I had to get done, but in reality, it can always wait. Like, there's always tomorrow to get stuff figured out. I've realized that now, and I've spread myself much broader rather than wearing myself thin, feeling like I have to work all the time and be constantly thinking about the work that I have to do. But relating to that, the vacation was super relaxing because I was able to just take myself out of teaching for a bit and just be Justin instead of Mr. True for once. It is weird because pretty much no one, like, the majority of people that are in my life right now call me Mr. True because I'm referred to professionally. I don't have friends who call me Justin up here, so it's weird. But my brain is starting to respond more to Mr. True than my first name, but it's an interesting psychological thing. But relating to teaching, it's regulated itself out really nicely. There are some days that are bad-ish days, but I'm usually pretty adaptable and able to recover. It's been crazy, though, because of the fact that, for one, MEA was our break. Like, we had that fall break, so that week was a 3-day week, so already the focus was going to be a little off that week. Then the next week was the band does a haunted house fundraiser, so they basically turn the band room area into a haunted house. So even if it is just the high schoolers working on it, it makes it really hard for the younger kids to focus. So not any detriment to them, but it's like, I mean, I would be distracted if there was crap all over the place in the band room. So last week was a bit of a crazy week, and then this week is Halloween week. So it's only been 2 days in so far, but the last couple days have been a little bit on the rougher side. But it's also been weird because today they let them wear their costumes to school to have like a costume contest, which is fun and all, but then like they're distracted for the entire freaking day. Like, I like Halloween and all, but I was talking about this to one of my students actually a bit ago, but there's kind of like, Halloween is one of those holidays where it seems like there's two extremes. There's the people who love it and it is their favorite holiday and they go absolutely crazy over it, like designing their costume and decorating and stuff like that. and then there's the people who just could not care less. Like there's not really an in between on Halloween. You're all either all in or all out, and I am one of those who is all out. I could not care less. Like Halloween's okay, it was fun as a kid, but I'm not gonna spend a bunch of money to dress up as some random person. Maybe I will next year when I have a little bit more money under my belt. I want to dress up as Link because I think it would match my hairstyle pretty well. My hair is starting to grow out again because, one, I don't know who actually cuts hair decently in this place, so I might just have to grow it out to the point of it being down to my shoulder blades again. It might happen. We'll see. Plus, I hate taking care of my hair when it's this long, but I'm probably not going to end up being able to have it long for my entire lifespan, so might as well have it long while I can before I start balding. Then I'll just be one of those old people who like refuses to cut their hair even though they're bald. Like they have like the really long hair, but like the massive patch of bald that's surrounded by the hair. I think you can picture what I'm talking about. Man, this is just a really rambly episode. Maybe I just needed to get some stuff off my chest. This is the only time I ever really get to talk technically to anyone. I feel like there's more stuff. But yeah, the reason I didn't record a podcast episode last week was because I was still on vacation for MEA, and I was gonna record an episode when I got back, but I had a bunch of stuff to do because I had to go out and do my laundry because I have to go to the laundromat to do my laundry, and I had to do all my dishes that were left from before, because it was kind of a last minute decision that I was able to go. But yeah, then this last weekend I was pretty sick. Like, it was really weird. I've never had a sickness come on in the middle of the day the way that this one did. It's just a cold, so it's not bad. I thought I was maybe gonna have to miss school on Monday, partially because I knew the kids weren't gonna be doing much on Monday anyways, so I was like, if I miss any day, today would probably be fine. But then I ended up feeling better anyways. Yeah, one thing, this is going to be another tangent, but it does really kind of suck being a music teacher to me, because we're always preparing for our concert, and if I miss even one day, it feels like it throws off the entire cycle, because I have a very specific plan with what I want to rehearse on what days and what I want to work on every week. And if I end up getting sick and missing one of those days, it just feels like it all goes to shit, because I have to completely alter my plans and everything. Like, a wasted day is still a wasted day in my book. And also, the intimidation factor of, I know most subs do have study hall or whatever, but in band, I have 60 junior high kids in the same room. I can't just say, have a study hall, good luck. That would not work very well for the sub, and I would not want to unleash that upon them. So, it's hard, but even, if I get sick, I have to come up with something for them to do, which is tough when it's, a 45-minute class. Finding anything to have them work on that's music-related is going to be hard. And I experienced that in my student teaching as well. There was a few times where my mentor teacher was sick or gone, and I got to experience, there was still a sub there, but, I wasn't the sub because I wasn't legally licensed to teach alone yet. But my mentor teacher like assigned them a worksheet to work on for the hour, and it was like most of them finished in like 20-30 minutes, and then they were just screwing around and wrestling and hitting each other. And yeah, so that's why I like almost feel guilty if I ever were to leave my classroom to a sub. Like, I would have to be like sick and completely dying in order to be able to do that, like, mentally. I would spend the entire time while I was sick in bed, like, worrying about what was going on in the classroom while I was gone. But yeah, the reason I didn't record this last weekend, which now is just a couple days past, that's the only reason I'm recording on a weeknight, is because I don't want to miss 2 weeks in a row. Because also I'm going to be gone this next weekend, so I'm probably not going to be able to record that weekend either. But that's another topic of discussion. But yeah, it was weird because on Saturday, I've never had a sickness sneak up on me the way this did in the middle of the day. Saturday, I felt completely fine. And then randomly around like 2 or 3 p.m., my throat just started hurting like crazy. Like I've had like the pre-sickness like scratchy throat and like bit of like stuffiness. You can just kind of feel it coming on. Like this just all of a sudden on Saturday, my throat was like killing me. Like I had to take ibuprofen like immediately because I was like dying all of a sudden. And then Sunday was more of like the head sickness. My throat hurt less, but I was just more like off feeling. And that's why I thought I was not going to be able to go Monday, because I thought I wasn't going to be able to muster up the ability to go in and teach. But then I ended up being fine. But that was my last couple weekends. And then this week is actually another long weekend, which is really pretty nice. It's kind of rough because we're getting close to our concert. Our first concert of the year is 2 weeks from Thursday. And having that one day missing really does kind of blow this close to it, but we're pretty much ready. Like, I can say this with like pretty full confidence because I know the kids, if they watch it, won't see this until after the concert. It's not going to be uploaded until after, but I feel like we're pretty well ready, even though we're 2 weeks out. Like, there's ready, like we can play our songs, which is about where we're at, and then there's pushing it beyond to like, we are ready. Sorry for the mic peak, but we're not quite at that stage yet. Like, every grade can play, like every group can play its songs decently well. 5th grade is a bit of a struggle, but that's mainly just because it's 5th grade band. Like, let's be real, first 5th grade band concert, like first band concert ever, is never gonna be like that clean and spectacular. So I'm not terribly concerned about that. It's more like 6th grade and up that I want to have a high standard for like concert performance. And we right now are at the stage where we can play all of our songs. We can get through them and not have it be a complete mess. But we can take a lot of it to the next level and be able to play them a lot cleaner. But this weekend will be super nice for me. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's the first time I'm going to get to actually spend significant time with my girlfriend since I moved. Our 1-year anniversary was last week. It was a week ago today, actually. Yeah, it was a week ago today. So it kind of sucked that we weren't able to spend that much time together. we still call and play Donkey Kong Country. Like, the footage that you see on here is from sometimes I just record our play sessions and use that as background footage for the podcast. But it's nice that we can have something. Like, it's nice that we're at the point technologically now where that is something that's possible, where you can still kind of spend like time together, almost like internet time together, but it's still not the same as hanging out in person. Like, the thing about long distance relationships that I've learned is when you're with someone in person, there's not nearly as much pressure to keep a conversation going, because when you're long distance, you are texting pretty much all the time. Whereas if you're hanging out in person, a lot of the times you aren't speaking to each other every second of the day. Like, there's just this weird pressure in long distance relationships to constantly be talking to each other, texting, and texting back as soon as possible. We've got a really good balance, though, because I'm teaching pretty much all day, so I only text her when I need to. Or, like, when I'm available to, is what I mean. So, we've got a good balance, I feel like. And it'll be really nice to be able to see her for the first time in person since, like, August. It's been over 2 months. Well, we saw each other when I went down for that alumni pep band event, and it was very brief because she was on a field trip. She happened to be on a field trip up here when I went down to that alumni event, so it was really annoying how that worked out, but we still got to see each other. It was just a very brief, like, hi, hug, goodbye, I have to leave now sort of deal, but now we actually get to spend a good amount of time together, where I have off school completely on Monday, so I'll be able to go down Friday after school and spend all day Saturday and Sunday there without really worrying too much about driving back. It's worked out pretty nicely that every other week, like, it's kind of costly gas money-wise, but it has worked out nicely that every other week for the past few weeks I've been able to go down and see my family and see my friends. Like 2 weeks ago, I had MEA. I was able to go down and meet my parents kind of in the middle for our fishing trip. And then the 2 weeks prior to that, I was able to go down for the homecoming alumni pep band down in my hometown. And then now, 2 weeks after the fall break, I get to go down and spend time with my girlfriend. And then 2 weeks after that is Thanksgiving, I'm pretty sure. Well, it's a little over 2 weeks. I think it's actually 3. Well, it would be 2.5 technically. But, yeah, it's worked out really nicely. The 1 month that I foresee being rough in the future is January. January is legitimately my least favorite month out of the entire year. It is for one, it's bitter cold every year. January is the worst cold of the year. And usually, from what I remember, there's literally 0 days off of school in January. Which, well, other than January 1st. January 1st we have off, but we might have the 2nd off. I'm not sure. I think we do have the 2nd off as well. But the month of January just goes so slow. After December goes really fast as well. Usually December is pretty quick because you have winter break, which is like 3/4 of the, or 2/3 of the way through the month, basically. But yeah, January just kind of blows, and I think it will feel very, very long. However, we'll at least have plenty to do, because then we'll be preparing contest music and stuff like that, which will be nice. And that's when Jazz Band will be up and running, so I'll be busy all the time. Anyways, I suppose 40 minutes in, we should talk about the actual topics today. So, my opinion on horror movies and video games, TV shows, all that jazz. I think it's an interesting phenomenon because a lot of people do really like the adrenaline rush of being scared. I don't mind it, but I'm not... This is a person who's very, like... I wouldn't say low on, like, the horror genre. It's not that I don't not like it. It's just not something that I go after all the time. I feel like a lot of horror movies, from a, like, movie critic standpoint, are similar to comedies in that a lot of horror movies focus more on their horror elements than creating a good endearing story, which is the same way with a lot of comedies, but comedy is a genre that I like, so I don't mind bad comedies, because comedies you're going in to have fun and laugh, which I guess you could say the same about horror movies. And horror movies, you're going there basically just to get scared or creeped out or feel that suspenseful feeling and get the adrenaline rush. But at the same time, I think there is something to be said about the fact that from what I've seen, horror movies seem to have lower quality plot. Like I was saying before, where it seems like they focus too much on implementing the horror elements rather than having good storytelling. I don't have a lot of experience with horror in movies and TV because it was never really my thing. I haven't watched a lot of horror movies, and my only real experience with, like, horror TV shows is American Horror Story, which is not quite horror. It's more drama, and it just relies a lot on gore rather than actually being that scary. It's more mysterious than scary. It just kind of it's a show that has, like, supernatural elements. Although, what season is it? It's 6. Season 6 is the only season that I think legitimately is a little bit, like, horror scary-esque. Season 6 is one that still kind of spooks me a little bit, because it doesn't focus quite as much on, like, just supernatural stuff, and the way that it's shot, the way that the story goes, feels a lot more, like, realistic than the other ones. But moving on to, like, video games, on the other hand, I have a bit more experience with, for one. But for two, just from my experience, video games that use the horror element tend to use it very well because it makes the games feel very immersive. They do like really good horror games make you feel like you're in the game experiencing it yourself. Like Resident Evil 2, the remake, is actually one of the best games ever made, environment-wise and just aesthetically speaking, I think, because it makes you feel very invested and it makes you feel like you're there almost. Like, it's not a VR game, but Resident Evil 2 just is very immersive. That's the word. It's very immersive and makes it feel very real, and it really draws you in. The one thing that gets tied into horror too much, in my opinion, is jump scares. And other people agree, some people might not. Jump scares, some people might like them. I don't know why you would. I mean, I guess it gives you, like, the adrenaline rush. But jump scares are so dumb because it literally does not even have to be scary to scare you. It could literally be anything. Like, and that's been proven. Like, I've mentioned this before, but I watch people do the You Laugh, You Lose compilations, including people like Stanley.mov and Jimmy here. And people will post, like, funny jump scares in them, and they'll literally get scared by stuff like a baseball flying into the screen, or like Jimmy's own face jumping out at the screen. Like, it's like anything that jumps at you with, even like with warning, like the anticipation almost makes it worse. Like, you know a jump scare is coming, and then as soon as it hits, you just the anticipation makes it even worse. I just think jump scares are incredibly dumb. I've always been sensitive to them too, though, so that's probably why. I used to get jump scared by the enemies in Pikmin, like beady Longlegs. I used to jump out of my skin. And I used to hate the Luigi's Mansion when you got to the second area and the guys dropped from the ceiling. That was my child jump scare. Was those. Luigi's Mansion was my horror game. As a whole, I think the horror genre works really well in video games, and it's something that I do really like, and I wish I had more time so that I could spend time exploring those games. I do have Resident Evil 2, and I have 7 on the Xbox as well. Although I think everything after 4 is... Well, no. From what I heard, a lot of the games after 4 started going more for action, but rather than horror. But I think 7 went back closer to the horror roots. So maybe I'll have to try that one out. Like, it's certainly something that I'm interested in, but I don't know. And movies, I don't know if I ever really will be. I think it would take a really, really good horror movie to draw me in, because I'm a person who likes getting invested in characters, and I feel like even in pretty good comedies, I can at least get invested in the characters because they're so, like, real life / relatable-ish, usually in comedies. Whereas in horror movies, I feel like there's not a lot of emphasis put on character development, usually. If anyone has any, like, legitimately good horror movies, not like a good horror movie, but a good movie that is a horror movie, let me know in the comments, because I'd be interested to watch and try it out a little bit more. Okay. God, my nose is clogged. I really need to blow it, but I don't have any Kleenex nearby. And I probably shouldn't blow my nose right into the mic either. That'd be disgusting. Ranking the Zelda games. I'm looking up a list of mainline Zelda games right now. Do I include remakes in this? Slash, like, remasters. I don't know. I think I do, because there is one specific... Well, there's a couple specific remasters that I think are way better than their predecessors, and I want to put that out there. Um, there are 2 Zelda games that I've played but never beaten and never really got, like, I played it for like literally 5 minutes. And that's the Oracle games. And now that I'm looking at it as well, the 4 Swords games I really could not rank. I've played them a little bit, but not enough to rank them. At the bottom of the list would easily be Triforce Heroes. I don't know how they can even call that a Zelda game. Triforce Heroes, I really probably shouldn't rank this because it's similar to 4 Swords where I've literally played it like twice. But, like, it just was not fun and did not feel like Zelda. From what I remember, I despised it with all of my being. Then next, because I know this has a cult following, but I've never really been able to get into the NES Zelda games, so I'm gonna kind of pair them. Zelda 2 and Zelda 1 are about even with me, and it's partly because I didn't grow up with them. I still haven't beaten either of them. I probably should. I got decently far in Zelda 1 a while ago, and then I quit. But they're okay. They're really good for the time, and obviously they set the precedent for the entire series. But if I want to pick up a Zelda game and play it, I'm not going to play Zelda 1. I will just put that out there. It's kind of like any other NES game, other than like Mario 3. Mario 3, I think, is the best NES game out there, like by far. It's just so cleanly designed for an NES game, it's crazy. Pretty much any NES game has been far outclassed by its sequels. Like, the original Metroid, I beat it so that I could say I beat it. And same with Fire Emblem 1. I do really like Fire Emblem 1 for what it's worth, but Zelda kind of falls under that same category where it set the precedent for the entire series, but there is always going to be better games to play in the series. Next on my list, I would say, is probably I think it has to be Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening is similar in that it's dated, and I'm not going to include any of the remakes. This is just where Link's Awakening, any version, lies for me. It's again a pretty decent game that's kind of held back by the system that it's on. I'm not a huge fan of Link's Awakening in general. It's got some okay portions, but as far as 2D Zelda goes, it's not the best. And there are others that are far, far superior. Next, I'm gonna go with another duo just because I don't remember either of them very well. The DS games, Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass. I never finished Spirit Tracks, but I did finish Phantom Hourglass. And this was back when touch controls were a big thing, and they wanted to make use of that in the DS games, but I just think the touch controls are a major reason why this game kind of blows. And graphically, DS games, especially when they tried to make 3D games on it, really do not look good. I would like to sometime play it again because it's been since I was like a small child that I actually played through Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, but it was not that memorable for me. Phantom Hourglass I played a really good amount, but Spirit Tracks I kind of just fell off on, and really not memorable for me at all. Next, maybe a hot take, but the original Majora's Mask. I don't like Majora's Mask. I've kind of made this clear, but the main issue that I have with it is the fact that you can the only way to make a permanent save is to go back in time and basically lose your progress. Like, if you're going to be like, I guess this was kind of the way console games were back then. But if you were going to play Majora's Mask, you had to play a lot in one sitting, usually. You could make the temporary saves at the owl statues, but for one, it made the beginning of the game really annoying because it takes a while for you to get through the segment to where you get the sword and you're able to actually activate the owl statues. Like that, like as a kid, I couldn't figure that out, and I tried it many times and just gave up. That's the reason why I never really played Majora's Mask as a kid. I didn't play Majora's Mask really until the 3DS version came out. But and I will admit that my experience was especially soured on it because I played on the collector's edition GameCube version, which does not emulate properly and crashes frequently, which makes the fact that the owl statues are only temporary saves a much bigger deal, because if you load in and you die, or the game dies really, like the game crashes, you then are stuck going all the way back to the beginning of the cycle you were on, which could cause you to lose a lot of progress. And that's why I don't really like Majora's Mask. And in general, the game, like, I know it was like a very budget Zelda game where it was like, how fast can we make the sequel to Ocarina of Time? But the dungeons in that game kind of just suck. I don't mind I don't mind them, like, aesthetically. Like is it Snowhead? It's a good idea, but I don't like playing it at all because the Goron just goes crazy and you end up flying all the way down to the bottom so frequently. Great Bay is okay. And Windfall, I do really like Windfall. Or is it Woodfall? I'm thinking Windfall Island. It's Wood... God, now I'm going crazy. Is it Woodfall? I'm probably saying the wrong name. The first temple. The first temple is probably the best temple in the game, in my opinion. Just because it's simplistic enough, uses the Deku Mask really well, and just is designed aesthetically really pleasingly. I like the Stone Tower music is goated, but the dungeon is terrible to go through. I do not like it whatsoever. Again, same with Snowhead. It's a cool idea, but I hate playing it. Then next is going to have to be... I think it's gotta be OG Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time, again, hot take to have this kind of in the middle of my list, but Ocarina of Time did set the precedent for 3D Zelda games. It set the formula, but it's... I don't know. It's so dated in a lot of ways that I don't enjoy playing it that much. I like playing it in a randomizer setting, like, but I can't rate it based on that because that's not a core aspect of the game. Like, there's a lot of Ocarina of Time that I just do not enjoy playing through because it's dated, and that's the main reason really for it, is I just don't like it probably because I didn't grow up with it. I did play it when I was younger, but again, it was on, like, it wasn't that much different, but I played it on the collector's edition on the GameCube when I was like 7 or 8. I used to be scared of Kippura Gaebora, the owl, when he turned his head upside down. It scared me for some reason. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Ocarina of Time. Next, I think, is going to be Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword is solid. I really do like Skyward Sword. What makes it annoying is the fact that you go to the same areas 3 times each, like, yes, you get to explore new parts of them, but I wish you could get somewhere other than, like, forest, Death Mountain, volcano, and the sand area. Like, you go to the same 3 areas that aesthetically look pretty much the same 3 times each. But I really like the dungeons in this game are top tier. Like, every single one of them is really, really clean. Like, Sandship is probably my favorite dungeon in the entire series. And I really like I can't remember what it's called, where you're collecting the tears. Or not are they tears? Like goddess trials, or whatever. Where you play the harp and then you have to go around collecting the tears where you're on a timer. I really like those segments as well. They're anxiety-inducing, yes, but they're really very fun. And this on the list, if I were ranking it, this is probably where Ocarina of Time 3D would go. Because Ocarina of Time 3D, even though it only moves it up like 2 spots, technically speaking, Ocarina of Time 3D is just a much cleaner experience than the original Ocarina of Time. However, just game-wise, I like the games that are above it a little bit more. Okay. Then I think it's going to be A Link Between Worlds. I really like A Link Between Worlds. I haven't played it in a while. But the fact that they basically took the idea of A Link to the Past and rebranded it. Like, it wasn't a... They've never really done this before. God, my nose is really bugging me now. They've never really done this before, but they took the idea of A Link to the Past and didn't remake it, but made a game in the same land with the same ideas as A Link to the Past, and I think it was really cool and clever that they did that. And the whole, like, going into the wall as a painting was a super inspired, super cool idea. Then, above that, above Link Between Worlds, I'm going to put Majora's Mask 3D. People think that, like, a lot of people say that Majora's Mask 3D is a downgrade from the original because they nerfed a lot, like, every mask. But I personally really like it. When I was younger, it was the first game it was the first Zelda game that I 100%ed, and I did it without a guide because the game, I think, does a really good job of guiding you, which maybe people today, like, by today's standards, maybe it's too much hand-holding, but the way the Bomber's Notebook worked in that one, I really liked how it kind of kept track of all of the quests and stuff. It was really nice because the thing about Majora's Mask, the original, that kind of sucked, was you had to remember what things took place at what specific times, and like, not just remembering it for one cycle, but then being able to remember it when you come back to it later. And it's like, if you put the game down for a while and then come back to it, you're not going to remember that shit. So it's really nice that the Bomber's Notebook does, like, a really good job of keeping track of all the quests and stuff in Majora's Mask 3D. That was one major upgrade that I think really helped that one. And kind of similar to Ocarina of Time, the game is just way smoother on 3DS. Then above that, this one's, it's tough for me. With the ones that are left, they're all really close. I think I think I'm gonna go Breath of the Wild next. Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games ever made. It is just a feat in of itself that the game exists. It is crazy how much there is to do and explore in it. However, it kind of loses a bit of the Zelda feel and Zelda aesthetic, which was the goal. Like, the goal was to make it a completely new open world experience, but it doesn't feel like Zelda some of the time. And that's where it's a little bit lower for me, is just because Breath of the Wild, to me, doesn't feel like, I know it's not supposed to feel like your traditional Zelda, but to me it's a bit of a negative that it doesn't. And the dungeons in that game just felt like the Divine Beasts felt like glorified shrines, which I didn't like very much at all. And a big part of other Zelda games was the story, where I know in normal open world games the story isn't very present because it would interrupt the exploration. And it would kind of, like, you can't really do much of a story without putting someone on a linear path. However, Zelda has always it's never been an entirely story-driven game series, but the story has been very prevalent, where there's a lot of lore in Breath of the Wild, but there's not very much, like, straightforward story elements. It's all told in flashbacks, really, and that's about it. Then, next on the list is going to be Tears of the Kingdom. It's same points as Breath of the Wild, but the big plus is this: I like the story a lot more, and how it's a lot more involved throughout the game. I haven't beaten it yet, but the story is just a lot more involved throughout the game, and the dungeons are slightly better, still in my opinion, not up to regular Zelda standards. Like, they take like 10-15 minutes to beat, and I think they should be bigger. It's just weird, because it's like they heard the fans' complaints that they wanted bigger and better dungeons in Breath of the Wild 2, like the sequel, and then in Tears of the Kingdom they like half-assed it almost. Like, I've beaten 2 dungeons so far, and they were not like difficult, or like they did not take very long to beat. Like, it was an upgrade over Breath of the Wild, where they did feel like distinct temples, like dungeons that had puzzles that you would not solve in any other area of the game. Like, they felt unique. However, they were really short and really small. Next is going to be A Link to the Past. I have really grown to appreciate A Link to the Past to an even greater degree playing Randomizer, which may feel weird after I just said that I can't really speak on, like, I can't use the Randomizer as a way to upgrade Ocarina of Time. But A Link to the Past is is a game that's like almost, it's really pretty open. Like, especially for like Super Nintendo standards, it's a very open Zelda game where you can kind of go and explore, and you aren't given too much guidance on where to go in what order. And I really like that about it. I've actually only beaten it vanilla once without like randomizing stuff, but playing the randomizer has gotten me to appreciate just how many secrets are hidden throughout the game, and like, it got me to fully experience the game as a whole now. So it's a game that, like, now I pretty much just know, like, where everything is because I've done Randomizer. So if I played the vanilla game, I could 100% it without using a guide. And honestly, it's just a really wonderful, well-rounded experience with a great, like, with great storytelling, where you have it's kind of the first Zelda game that had the traditional, like, first half. You have, like, just a couple dungeons you beat, and then you go and beat the fake out final boss, and then you get sent into the Dark World, and then you have more dungeons that are more difficult to beat, which is kind of become tradition, where in, like, Ocarina of Time, you beat the child dungeons, and then you go adult, and you have more dungeons to beat. And in Twilight Princess, you go and do the, you get the, like, what is it called? Like, the Twilly pieces or whatever. The Twilight pieces, and then Zant breaks it, and then you have to put the mirror together. Like, it kind of set the, like, it set the precedent for Zelda formula in of itself. Like, Ocarina of Time, I gave, like, 3D Zelda games an identity, but in reality, the formula has been followed since Link to the Past. And I just think Link to the Past is a perfect game. Like, I will honestly say that I think A Link to the Past, there's literally no flaws with it. It is a 10 out of 10 perfect game. Whereas the games below this point, I could find a flaw or two that I don't like, but Link to the Past, I love it. I hate Skull Woods, but that's not anything to do with the game. I just hate the, like, the dungeon itself is just really annoying. But yeah, I really like A Link to the Past. But there are two games that I like more, and it's hard for me to pick which one. I think right now I'm going to say Minish Cap. Minish Cap is second. Minish Cap is so inspired. Like, art direction and everything is perfect. It is such a good looking game for the Game Boy Advance, for one, and just the way they do the puzzles where you, like, shrink down, and the environments that you go in when you shrink down, and you can see, like, the dew dripping off the leaves and stuff like that. It's so inspired, and it's such a well-designed game. It's, again, perfect. Like, I love Minish Cap. It is so incredible. And it kind of proves, like, I've grown more fond of 2D Zelda lately. Like, I really like Link to the Past and Minish Cap. I used to, as a kid, be like, oh, 2D Zelda blows. Like, it's just 2D Zelda is boring. I want to play the 3D ones. But I've grown to almost feel the opposite way, where I really want them to make a new 2D Zelda game. It'd be really cool if they did a 2D Zelda game in, like, the Octopath Traveler 3D, 2D pixel art style. And I think a 2D Zelda game would be nice because it wouldn't take them nearly as long to develop as, like, your Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Like, they could probably crank that out in a year and a half. Then, at the top, and has been, might always be, Twilight Princess is, in my opinion, the best Zelda game. It is the best story in a Zelda game. It's just literal perfection. It's, in my opinion, the only perfect 3D Zelda game. Like, in terms of, like, rating wise, it's the only 3D Zelda game I would give a 10 out of 10. But it nails it in pretty much every way, like tone, aesthetics, like having it be darker toned to symbolize the darker story. Music, I don't even have to talk about music, it's good in every game. But the dungeon design is super well done in this one. Like, every dungeon is solid in that one. The only one that I would say is a little uninspired is Temple of Time, but that one's still totally fine. Like, the worst, like, that Temple of Time, if you threw it the same dungeon in Ocarina of Time, would be, like, either the best or, like, at least in the top 3 dungeons in that game, in my opinion. It's funny because Temple of Time used to be my favorite dungeon in Twilight Princess, and now I have no idea why, because it is kind of boring and bland, but I really like the Dominion Rod, even though it's not used very much. But that is my rating. I love Twilight Princess, and I don't know if they'll ever top it, because it's been since 2006 that it came out. But Twilight Princess was almost kind of my Ocarina of Time in a way, because even though I played Ocarina of Time first, I beat Twilight Princess first and played it when I was like 9-10 years old. And I have a lot of memories with that one. Whereas Ocarina of Time was, for me, kind of like one of those games where my dad basically played all of it. Like, it was a lot of passing the controller off to him to have him do the hard parts. Where Twilight Princess, I bashed my head against a wall trying to figure out how to get through parts. But yeah, that's it for my Zelda rankings. I'm gonna pause the recording so I can go blow my nose because this is getting obnoxious. I blew my nose, but I don't know if it's gonna help because it's in that state where all the crap is like, it's like drainage between my nose and like the back of my throat. So it's like blowing my nose isn't gonna get any of it up. It's just really annoying. But the special segment, my thoughts on Loki so far up to episode through episode 4. Have not seen 5 yet because it's not out. This series is actually insane. Like, it is seriously by far the best season that Marvel has produced of their MCU TV shows. And so far, Marvel has me really optimistic. I don't know how the Marvels movie will be with Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel. I don't know how that one will be. We'll see. But the last couple projects have been really good. Between Loki and what's it called? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Those two were some of the best. Like, so far, Loki is really good. And Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the best Marvel movies. Well, period. It's one of the best Marvel movies, IMO. And it probably is the best one since Endgame, including No Way Home. And Loki, just, the storytelling in it is done super well. It is kind of annoying how they structure their episodes where it feels like every single one always has to end on some sort of cliffhanger. Like, the pacing of each episode is always a little weird because they always end on a cliffhanger, like every single one, which is a little bit annoying, but I guess it does make sense with just a 6-episode mini-series to do something like that, but still, I don't know. But episode 4, spoiler alert, it'll all be out by now, but when Victor Timely dies, like, he gets ripped apart, I was literally left agape. Like, my mouth was hanging open because I expected him to die, but I expected him, like, for one, I didn't expect it to be that abrupt or quick. That's part of the shock, and two, kind of the almost gruesome nature that he died. And I expected him to, like, at least complete what he needed to do and then die. Whereas, 1, he just dies, and then 2, now the entire timeline, like the loom, exploded. So it's like, what is even going to go on in the next few episodes? So it leaves you on the edge of your seat. And so far, I've been just super impressed. Every episode has been super enjoyable to watch. And I watched 1, 2, and 3 in a row. I'd kind of forgotten it was even out, and then I was like, oh, I suppose I can watch this. And through the first couple episodes on, and got hooked and watched, like, I was just gonna watch an episode before football. Actually, I think it was when the Vikings played the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. I had a little bit of time beforehand, so I watched episode 1. And then I got hooked on it and ended up watching the other episodes the day after. But yeah, it has me looking forward to every Thursday. And I'm super excited to see where it goes in the next 2 episodes. However, it could very easily be blown by a bad ending. I remember Loki season 1, we all thought was really good, except that kind of filler-ish episode 3, was not quite as to the level of everything else, but it was still pretty fun. It was fine. But what else? But then it kind of ended a bit anticlimactically. Like, people expected this big Kang reveal, and it was like a variant of Kang, but I think it was a bit more of a low-key... That was not meant to be a joke. A bit more of a low-key ending than people expected. So then the finale kind of got a bad rep and kind of put a sour taste in people's mouths for the rest of the series. Like, people just thought the pacing was a little weird. Like, it felt like episode 4 was the climax of the entire show. And then it was just, like, the finale kind of just was eased off almost. But so far, season 2 is really, really good, and I hope they continue in the upward momentum. I think it was the producer has said in interviews that episode 5 and 6 are incredible, which obviously they're going to hype up their own show, but still, I feel like maybe they know what they're talking about. Like, they almost seem surprised that people are so hyped about episode 4, where they're like, just wait till you see what else we've got cooking. What was the last topic again? Oh, God, my nose is bothering me. Hold on, I'm gonna pause and blow it quick. God, hopefully it's not like this when I'm teaching tomorrow, or it's gonna be rough. Luckily, it's an early out day, so I don't have to teach for it's only 6 less minutes a period. So I still have to teach for like, it's basically just a few minutes less out of the day that I have to teach, but it'll still be annoying. But my board game reviews. So I played a lot of board games with my family over MEA break, and I want to break them all down. So first, a bit more of a kidsy game, the Goofy Movie board game, which actually has a bit more depth than I expected for a board game that's based on like a children's movie. It's one of my classic like feel good movies. I love that movie. But the Goofy Movie board game is really fun. You're basically all just trying to make it to the Powerline concert, which you're on a map of the US, and you are moving across different tourist stops to get tourist cards on the way. So you can like go further out of your way to get more cards to try to stack up more points. But if you go too far out of the way and you end up not making it to LA before the game ends, then you get screwed out of a bunch of points, which my parents found out when the game kind of just abruptly ended because people drew a lot of cards in one turn, so then the deck just ran out, and when the deck runs out, the game just ends. So it ended really abruptly, and my parents both got screwed over because they were all the way across the map, and they did not even come close to the scores that my brother and I had. But like, it's definitely a simplistic game, but it's supposed to be. But it actually has like some thought put into it, and some like decent strategies that you can try to go for. It's a pretty short game, so it's not like you're going to be doing like master chess strategies here, but it's still a fun game for a kid's game, and it's very light and easy to set up too, so that's a big bonus. And the components were really high quality too. I got the game for $10. Like, it was on sale for $10 at Target. And the board especially, like, the board is of higher quality than some of the like $40, $50 board games that I buy. So, big plus on that. And I would give the Goofy Movie board game like a 7.5 out of 10. It's replayable, mainly for the fact that it's easy to pull out, but it's like a good family game. I wouldn't pull it out with like anyone that's like my age, like actual gamers. Like, it's a fun like game to play with the family because it's easy to teach, but it does have the deeper strategy that'll attract more seasoned gamers as well. Next, the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars deck building game. I played this with my younger brother while we were on vacation. It's a 1v1 game only, which kind of limits it in a way because you can only play it with one other person. So it's a very niche sort of game. It was fine. I really liked it thematically, and the design on the cards was really pretty cool. And it genuinely does feel like very thematic, where it's like the cards are balanced in a way where it's like Darth Vader is obviously the strongest Empire card, and Luke Skywalker is the strongest Rebel card, and like the balance of power there is super cool. And just the way the game plays out feels very thematic. However, what I found, and it might be because it was one play, and my brother and I didn't really know what we were doing that well yet, but it was close. Like, I needed to do, I think, 8 more damage to his last base and I would have won. But on his last turn, he just destroyed me and did like 20 damage in one turn. And he ended up getting lucky with a lot of draws. Like, he got Darth Vader and he got Darth Vader, Boba Fett, and Jabba the Hutt. And they all are like pretty strong cards. And because he got those cards, he then was able to afford more cards. And it's not like I was doing nothing, I just wasn't flipping any good cards for my side. My best card I got the entire game was Han Solo. I didn't really get anyone like Luke or Leia the entire game. But, again, it might be because it was our first game and I just didn't know what I was doing that well. What I do like about it is kind of similar to the Goofy Movie game, where it's really easy to set up, it's really quick, it's just a deck of cards and one like force tracker, and the game flows really well as well. Like, it goes really smoothly, and overall the gameplay is very fast paced. Like, you are not going to be taking forever to take your turn because there's not a lot of decisions to make on your turn, which I really like how concise it is there. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I would play it again just because it's so easy to pull out. And I would be interested to see if that sort of thing happens again, where it feels like one player can easily swing things just massively in their favor. Like, pretty much as soon as he got Darth Vader, it was over. And the Force was on his side the entire time because I never got any cards that allowed me to pull it back to my side. Like, I just never again, it was never available in the shop, so it's not like I could have bought anything to help. What other games did we play? Downforce. Downforce is one that I've played a couple times now, but it's fresh in my mind because we did play it when we were on vacation. Downforce is really fun. It's one that I would heavily recommend because, again, it's simple, but it also does offer a bit deeper strategy. However, another thing that I will say, the balance of power between the power-ups in the game, like, in the beginning of the game, you auction off the cars that you're basically betting on, or that you are going to be trying to help win the race. And at the same time, while you're auctioning off the different cars, you're auctioning off different power-ups that you'll have for the rest of the game as well. You only pick one, but it feels like some are definitely much better than others. And I guess it's like you are bidding on them at the same time, but like some cards seem like extremely overpowered, namely the one that lets you make 2 bets in the first round of betting, because basically how the game works is the racetrack is divided into like thirds, and whenever the front car finishes the first third of the race, all of the players place a bet on who they think is going to win the entire race, and they do it for every third of the race. And there's one power-up that lets you place 2 bets on the first one and cash out both of them, which if you get first and second on that, you basically just win. Like, there's almost no way to overcome that. So it just feels like that one is very overpowered in particular. However, I had a card where I only owned one car. It was blue. And I had the power-up that let me discard the power-up to take 2 turns in a row. So basically, only once during the game I could take 2 turns in a row. And I was betting my car, even though it was in, like, 4th place every time. And then the last, like, almost the last turn of the game, before anyone had finished yet, I used the power-up so that I could blow by everyone and finish the race. But I was 1 space off in my calculations. I was 1 space away from the finish line, and it ended up putting me in like 3rd, I think. So I almost had a deeper, good strategy that might have helped me win the game if even if my calculation had been right, or even if I knew like that I was going to end up a space later, I couldn't have waited another turn to move because my brother was like 2 spaces away from the finish line anyway, so he was going to finish the next turn either way. But it is a fun game that has interesting like interactions, just because you have the cars that you own, but then when you're in the process of betting, it's like you kind of have to decide whether you're going to bet for your own car because you think you're going to be able to pull it ahead, or if you want to kind of take the L and bet on a car that's farther ahead, that like bet that they're going to win. Because you cash out both. You cash out the car that you own, the cars that you paid for and you own, and you cash out the cars that you bet on. So they're 2 separate things that you can win money based on. I'd be interested to get the expansions to see if the expansions expand on the powers, and if I do like that the game comes with 2 different tracks as well, which is super nice, but I want to see if the other tracks are any good. But yeah, Downforce, I would give it similarly to the Star Wars game an 8 out of 10, because it is fun, but it's very, very simplistic. It's very easy to take out of the box and set up, but it is a very, very simple game that doesn't offer much for deeper strategy. Like, you can try, but as soon as one car kind of pulls ahead, it's pretty much there for the rest of the game. Like, the power-ups kind of try to mitigate it, whereas like some power-ups will like there's one power-up I think that lets you move cars backwards or something, like other cars backwards, And you can like trap cars too, to where if a car cannot move forward because there's cars blocking it, it gets stuck. So you can do that to try to keep cars from getting ahead. But there's not that much for strategy in it. But it is, I think it might be my younger brother's favorite game. I don't know. He seems to like it quite a bit. It was his request to bring on our vacation. I'm trying to think if we played... Oh, we played a couple of, like, smaller games. Pinata Blast was one that plays a lot like just a basic party game, where you have a hand of cards that all have different candy on them, and the lead player rolls a bunch of dice, and you have to put a card down and grab a die that has the same candy as the card that you laid down on it. So you have to have like really quick reflexes and be thinking fast to do it. And it's a very fast-paced, fun game that doesn't offer much for strategy, but it had like a lot of funny, like memorable moments, which is like something that is to be desired as well when you're playing games, like those memorable moments. Like my mom dug her fingernails in my hand on accident. She felt bad about it, but it was really funny. It didn't draw blood or anything, but her and I went for the same die at the same time, and she grabbed my hand, and her fingernails dug into the back of my hand. And then the same thing almost happened before, where I knew my brother had one card left in his hand, and when you run out of cards, the game's over. And I knew what he needed, and there was only one die that was rolled the next round that had it on it. So him and I like lunged for it and grabbed it at the same time, and the die went flying up in the air, and then it like ended up on the floor, and I like dove to the ground to grab it first. But like stuff like that, it's super fun and a fun game to like really get involved in. And again, it doesn't take that long to set up or learn either. Like, it's probably only a 7 out of 10, but it doesn't get down into like the low, like it's average. It's not gonna be down in the lower range. Like, I'd play it again. It's fun and easy to get out as well. Similarly, we played Rhino Hero as well, which is again a game that's very easy to set up and very fun. It kind of sucks for me because I don't know what it is, but my hands are really shaky when I try to hold them steady. Like, I notice it like heavily. I cannot just stabilize my hands. I don't know if I have a problem or what, but they're always a little bit like involuntarily shaky. But it's a Jenga style game. For those of you who don't know, Rhino Hero, it's like you're making a house of cards, basically. Not in like a traditional sense, but it's like you have cards that you lay flat that are floors/roofs. And then you have wall cards that bend, like they have creases in them already that you bend, and you put the walls in specific places that the card, like the floor card, says where the walls will go. You put the walls up, and then you lay the floor on top of it. And it's a fun game because it's like Jenga, but you're playing Uno at the same time, basically, because you're trying to get down to having no cards, because if you end up with no cards, then you win outright. However, playing with my family, we never got down to no cards. It was always someone knocked it over, and it was really funny. The like second time I was playing it with my mom and my brother, I was like really focusing because it was like at least 10 stories tall at this point. So I was like slowly reaching over to like put the floor or the roof/floor, whatever you want to call it, on top. And when I about had it there, my brother like burst out laughing, and the air that he expelled from his mouth when he laughed just blew the entire thing all over the place. It was really funny. But again, like memorable moments like that, it's not a very strategic or it's not a game that has much for deeper strategy, but it's still really enjoyable and fun. And it's a game that like you can teach to anyone because it's not complicated. All you do is stack cards. But yeah, it's super fun. I honestly give this one like an 8.5 out of 10, which might be like, wow, that's the highest game you've rated so far. But honestly, I would say that because it's the most, like, it's just dumb fun, and a game takes like 10 minutes or less, and it takes literally like a minute or less to set up, so it doesn't take long, and it's really a very enjoyable and fun game to play. The last one that I have to rate is Flamecraft, finally. I can't remember if I talked about it in the last episode or not, but Flamecraft, I love playing it solo. I need to play it again with my family because I didn't like it as much. I didn't like how the game flowed quite as much when I was playing with other people. But as a solo game, I think it would have been a 10 out of 10. But right now, where it stands, I'm giving it a 9. Because I do really like it, and it still is really fun. I love the art on the cards. I love the theming. It's super cute. And again, it's a simple game, but there's so much deeper strategy in this one that you kind of need to know to play well. And a lot of just moving parts behind the scenes on it as well, that I really do like it a lot. I think when I go back home this weekend, I'm going to bring it back so we can play it again now that everyone knows the rules, so I don't have to spend the first half of the game teaching and reteaching rules over and over again. But solo wise, I love it. It's like perfect. It's super fun, and it flows really well. Which is weird because I've never had a like multiplayer game with a solo mechanic that's been added. I've never felt that the solo variant was better. Like, I've always felt like it was a more dumbed down version of the full game, whereas I honestly like playing the solo version of Flamecraft better than playing multiplayer so far. But that is the last game that I have to review, and that is going to bring us to the end of this episode of True Talks. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and that the week ahead of you treats you very well. Peace out, everyone. Thank you for watching and listening.
you